Let's start today off with a question, shall we? Would you rather have a player on your fantasy football team that goes out weekly and scores right around 13 to 14 fantasy points? Or would you rather have a player that goes out there and puts up 30 multiple times a year, but also goes out there and throws up like 4 fantasy points a game multiple times a year? We all love those big, huge explosion games, but we also hate the headaches that come along with big-time players disappearing. What is going on, Headliner Nation? Hopefully everyone's doing well out there today, where yes, we're going to be talking about a few players that always seem to finish high at season's end. However, week to week trying to figure out what their production is going to be is an absolute headache. Now, before we get into the names in today's episode, just one quick reminder. We have partnered once again with Underdog Fantasy here in 2024. But if you've been here any length of time, you know that we want to play along with you here this season. Now, it doesn't matter if it's best ball or player pick'ems, just come hang out with us. Now, maybe you're sitting there saying, man, I don't even have an account on Underdog Fantasy. Am I too late? No, the perfect time to sign up is right now. All you have to do is head over to Underdog Fantasy or download the app. Create a new account using the referral code Headliners. Now, once you're done with that, all you have to do is make the minimum $10 deposit. Now, by using that Headliners referral code, you're going to get your deposit matched up to $100 there initially. That's something, we all love free money, but that's not it. You're also going to be getting a free 2024 fantasy football draft guide. Not only do we want to play alongside you in some best ball leagues and some player pick'ems, but we also want you to absolutely dominate the fantasy leagues that you play in. We're going to be dropping links all off season, so be sure to get that account signed up right now. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at a few players that could be a headache to own in 2024. And the first player we're talking about today is going to be James Cook, running back of the Buffalo Bills. This dude was the overall running back 11 just last season in 2023, where he averaged 12 fantasy points per game. We know that Stephon Diggs is gone. We know that Gabe Davis is gone. So Buffalo has to rely heavily on James Cook, right? Not so fast. Because when you do a little bit more digging, you find out that James Cook was already kind of a headache last season. Now, despite finishing as the running back 11 overall, he failed to finish inside the top 15 at the position in 7 of his last 10 games of the season. In fact, 57.7 of his 210.7 total fantasy points scored came in just 2 games last year. That's over 25% of his season-long production that came in 2 out of 17 games. Now, everyone expects Buffalo to add more to their wide receiver group, myself included. But I kind of feel like people are really overlooking Curtis Samuel and Khalil Shakir. The best season that Curtis Samuel has ever had in the NFL, it was in Carolina when his offensive coordinator was Joe Brady. Right now, Joe Brady is the offensive coordinator in Buffalo, and they just brought in Curtis Samuel from free agency. Plus, we already saw Khalil Shakir produce in this offense when he was really given an opportunity. They could eat up some of that dump-off volume that we saw go the way last year to James Cook, which really, he needs that dump-off volume. The dude only had 2 rushing touchdowns last year, and now we have a Buffalo offense with even less touchdown upside. Plus, we already know that Josh Allen is going to steal a lot around the goal line. The boxes, more than likely they're going to remain stacked because there's not a lot of threats on the outside to pull them out of the box. Last season, James Cook only averaged 2.5 yards per carry against stacked boxes. Now, don't get me wrong though. He's going to have good weeks, no doubt, but he's going to be drafted at a spot where you're probably going to be a little bit reliant on him and having to start him weekly. As of right now, his estimated 2024 ADP is into the 3rd round. And at that point, you're going to have to start the guy weekly, which means you'll have to deal with the headache of all the up and down games. All right, let's talk a couple ball catchers now. The first one up, it's Deebo Samuel, wide receiver of the San Francisco 49ers. And this really has more to do with San Francisco having so many high-end options that they're not going to be utilized consistently week in and week out. Now, Deebo Samuel last year finished as the wide receiver 12 overall and averaged just over 14 fantasy points per game. But super similar to James Cook, Deebo had over 25% of his season-long scoring racked up in just 2 games of 2023. Now, he did have 5 finishes up inside the top 10 at the position, but he also had 6 finishes outside the top 30. We know he also isn't the most durable player. He has never played a full season in his entire career. Now, a lot of people are going to want to turn to the potential rushing upside, the reason that he had that huge 2021 season. But his rushing attempts have decreased yearly ever since then. It's the CMC factor. We know he's not going to get a whole lot of looks deep down the field. He was ranked as the wide receiver 82 overall in the NFL in deep targets. He relies heavily on yards after the catch, which is fine because that's something he is great at. But that also leads to him getting banged up more often because of his style of play. His ceiling is so high, you can't afford to sit the guy weekly. He can win you your matchup basically by himself. And he's another guy you have to draft so early, you're going to be reliant on having to start him. His estimated ADP in 2024 is up inside the second round. If you draft Deebo Samuel, you're gonna have some big days. You're also gonna have some big headaches. A lot of the same can be said for A.J. Brown, wide receiver of the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, last year in 2023, it was a tale of 2 seasons for A.J. Brown. He went on an unbelievable hot streak with 6 straight games over 125 yards receiving. Through the first 10 weeks of the season, he was the overall wide receiver 2, only trailing Tyreek Hill. But from weeks 11 on, it was a completely different story because he was the wide receiver 32 over that stretch, and he was even outscored by the likes of Demarcus Robinson for the Rams. But it was his hot start to the season that really helped propel him to an overall wide receiver 7 finish in 2023. He had 6 100-yard receiving games the first 8 weeks of the season. The remaining 9 weeks of the season, he only had 1. He really hurt a ton of people in the fantasy playoffs just last season. In fact, 1/3 of his season-long scoring came in just 3 games last year. This is still an offense that has a lot of weapons to throw the ball to, and now they just added Saquon Barkley. We already know A.J. Brown is going to be super expensive on draft day, an estimated late first-round pick, and honestly, I don't see things in 2024 being much different for the Philadelphia pass catchers from what we saw in 2023. Unless A.J. Brown goes full diva again, either way, a huge headache potentially. Now, I also think we need to include Tamm Hill in this show here today as well. And there may not be a more polarizing player in fantasy football than Tamm Hill and his tight end eligibility. Either you're a Taysom truther that's going to go out there and defend him weekly, or you have no interest in playing fantasy roulette. Now, while he has finished as a top 10 tight end in each of the last 2 seasons, it's not all sugar plums and unicorns. Now, he scored a total of 127 fantasy points in half PPR scoring just last season. However, 69 of those points, nice, more than 50% of his scoring came in just 4 games. He only had 4 games all year where he had at least 4 receptions. Almost 25% of his rushing yards came while Alvin Kamara was suspended to start the season. We know that Michael Thomas and Chris Olave and Juwan Johnson all missed time last year as well. And because of all of that, it resulted in Taysom Hill racking up a career high in touches with 114. Now, there aren't very many tight ends out there that are going to get 114 touches in a season. However, he also had 6 games where he scored 3 points or less. And that is a risk you're going to have to take if you're reliant upon Taysom Hill. Now, he isn't someone that you have to draft super early, so that is a positive. But if you do draft Taysom Hill and you put him in your lineup, the upside is great, especially at the tight end position. But the letdown could lead to a migraine. But you know we also like to stay interactive AF in this community, so I want to know Who do you feel gives you the biggest headaches when it comes to fantasy football? Leave those comments down below in the comment section, because I also want to give away a free 2024 fantasy football draft guide. If this video can get over 500 likes, I'm going to pick a random commenter from down below to give you a draft guide for free. So as we get out of here for the day, do me a favor, hit the like button, leave that comment down below, and then most importantly, do your part to make the world a better place.